Okay, let's briefly check back in on the ongoing symbolic ritual surrounding President Donald Trump. This is from Gizmodo on February 5th, 2025. Netanyahu gifts Trump golden pager to commemorate attack that killed children. That was a great operation, quote unquote. The bizarre gift was offered amidst the Israeli leader's visit to Washington. During his recent visit to the White House, Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu gave President Donald Trump a rather bizarre gift, a pair of pagers. One of the pagers was reportedly gold, while the other was a normal one. The gift appears to have been a reference to the recent Israeli operation that used pagers and walkie-talkies rigged with explosives that Israel claimed were targeted at operatives of the Lebanese terrorist group Hezbollah. Again, this is just my read on the situation, as it always is. I could be making this up. Maybe this isn't the actual reason that Netanyahu, or those who handled Netanyahu, had him deliver these two pagers to Donald Trump. But that said, it seems pretty obvious that these two pagers represent Donald Trump's two presidential terms, one of which is normal, the other is golden. Meaning, it's the idea of turning lead to gold. It's an alchemical idea that surrounds the 9/11 ritual in general. They turned those two lead towers into gold via the ritual. And Donald Trump is the personification of that ritual in New York City on September 11, 2001, which we can see through his two presidential terms. The first one in 2016 was the first plane flying into that tower at the World Trade Center, and then the second term is the second plane that flies into the other tower at the World Trade Center. All of that precedes the controlled demolition. Metaphorically, Donald Trump's two presidential terms are preceding the controlled demolition of the United States of America. This is a symbolic ritual that has been encoded into Donald Trump. He is the eclipse baby moonchild that is eclipsing the United States. And once he passes across the path of the country through his two terms, America will reemerge as something new, completely different, destroyed in a way. Not how it used to be. And we have slowly seen this begin to take shape from the very first day he entered into the office. And the derangement symptoms are at all-time highs from this ritual that they are conducting through Donald Trump. The first pager is the first presidential term, the normal one, and the golden pager is the second presidential term, and it's golden because it represents the rhetoric that Donald Trump has been using surrounding this new term, which will be the new golden age for America. And that all ties in to the alchemical language that surrounds occult sources involving the idea of the new Atlantis and everything that is associated with that. It's an alchemical process. It's like the town across the border from Eagle Pass being Spanish for black stone, right? The black stone, the prima materia in the alchemical ritual, modified by the alchemical Mercury, right? The 88-day orbit of that planet in relationship to this ritual that's going on, involving Donald Trump's association to 88. He is the alchemical Mercury in a sense. That is transforming the lead into gold. And this is so obvious in the context of what these pagers represent, because the pagers, in terms of how Israel used them, were Trojan horses. They were seemingly normal pagers that were delivered to these Hezbollah operatives, they had no idea that they were laced with explosives. They had no idea that they were bombs. And that is exactly what Donald Trump is, at least to his supporters, right? And even the people on the other side who don't have any idea what's really going on, they don't realize it either. They are just opposed to him because that's what their team is supposed to do, right? But that's what Donald Trump has been all along. He is a Trojan horse. He was laced with explosives. He's 9/11 personified. He's the charges in the buildings that will demolish them in a controlled demolition so that something new can rise from the ashes. One pager is normal, the other is gold. They're transforming America from lead to gold in the context of the larger ritual, which involves everything that Donald Trump is supporting in the Middle East now as well, because that ties into all kinds of other agendas that are coalescing together to achieve this goal. Twin pagers, twin towers, lead to gold. Twin presidencies, one term and the second term, the controlled demolition of America via the ritual that is taking place symbolically. Not just through Donald Trump, but just in general, how the ritual was always taking place in what is presented to us through the news. Scripted in advance as always on this level. And in this context, the Super Bowl is going to be the culmination of the inauguration ritual for the second term, the golden age, that golden pager, right? All of these supporters of Trump right now think that he's doing great things, right? He's draining the swamp. They don't understand that he's laced with explosives that are gonna go off in the future, okay? And the Super Bowl is the culmination of this ritual this year that started on New Year's Day morning. Remember, they already did the blood sacrifice in New Orleans. On New Year's Day, a Ford F-150 Lightning truck came over the border from Blackstone, Mexico, however that is really pronounced in the Spanish language. It reduces to Blackstone. It crosses from there into Eagle Pass, where Donald Trump gave a speech on a leap day in a leap year in the lead up to his second presidential election. The Ford F-150 Lightning truck, produced in Dearborn, Michigan, crosses into America through Eagle Pass. It is driven into New Orleans by a United States citizen who was in the military. Another example of this kind of Trojan horse idea. A United States citizen in the military, radicalized, allegedly, by foreign sources, principally ISIS, which is what is on the bed of the truck in the form of a flag. This citizen drives this Lightning truck through Eagle Pass into New Orleans and engages in a blood sacrifice. He runs over a bunch of people and then gets out of his car and tries to shoot some other people before the police take him out. And as a commenter pointed out to me, Orleans can be rearranged to Lorian, as in the DeLorean vehicle that is featured in Back to the Future, that is tied into Lightning, 88 miles per hour, 10:04, and the whole Trump ritual that's going on here. The hotel that Biff builds in the alternate 1985 that's attached to the clock tower. And the Las Vegas ritual that transpired on the same day, January 1st, was attacked, quote unquote, by the new DeLorean, right? The Cybertruck is the new version of the DeLorean, kind of, in the form of Elon Musk. that Cybertruck, which symbolically was Elon Musk, blows up in the shadow of Trump's hotel, which is symbolic of what is actually going on with Elon Musk in the Trump administration blowing things up. They are both Trojan horses in this way, but Musk is more overt about it than Donald Trump is. At least that's how they're presenting it to everyone. And this is tied into the Super Bowl ritual in the sense that Trump now will attend the Super Bowl in New Orleans, the first sitting president to ever do so. And the Super Bowl takes place at the Caesars Superdome. And this is because the Superdome is sponsored by Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. So you have the connection between Caesars Palace, Las Vegas, and the Superdome in New Orleans in the form of these two rituals that took place on New Year's Day that related to Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and the Trojan horse blood sacrifice that is the controlled demolition of the United States of America, as personified by Donald Trump through his 9/11 symbolic narrative. The two presidential terms that blow up the two towers before the controlled demolition. Caesars Palace, Las Vegas, New Orleans Superdome. So you have the new DeLorean, the Cybertruck that blows up outside of Trump's hotel, and then you have the new DeLorean in the form of New Orleans. DeLorean Orleans. That New Year's Day ritual was charging this Super Bowl ritual in the same way that the TikTok ritual charged Donald Trump's inauguration. And in that connection, it's very interesting to me that the Caesars Palace logo is on top of the Superdome, but it has added numbers that make it look like a clock. The TikTok ritual that was going on the day before his rally on the 19th, if you remember that video where I went over it, it's all about people repeating the phrase, "since we're all going to die soon," which subconsciously is cementing this idea that America is going to die, metaphorically speaking. Since we are all going to die soon, right? That is repeated over and over again in the minds of people who are on TikTok with all this anxiety about it going away. Then they start seeing a message that Donald Trump is going to save TikTok. They divert all of their energy into Donald Trump in this way. All their attention goes to Donald Trump, and then that attention fuels the symbolic ritual that takes place on the 19th and then his inauguration on the 20th. In this way, he's the bridge of time from one place to another. He's the bridge of time in the Stargate ritual that is 9/11, and he is an extension of that ritual. Interesting to me that the Caesars Superdome, Caesars being from Las Vegas, the Superdome in New Orleans, has this clock on it as well. In the Caesars logo, Caesar going back to Rome, right? And Elon Musk was very vocal around the time of the inauguration that America is the new Rome. And what happened to Rome? It collapsed, right? The empire collapsed. So you have Caesar's Superdome. Donald Trump will be there. The first time a president has ever done this, a sitting president anyway. He is the new Caesar of the new Rome. Tick-tock, the empire is going to collapse. He's the Trojan horse that is laced with the bombs that will be the controlled demolition. We're in the process of it. It's already started. The first tower has been struck. It's smoking on fire, and he's in the process of plowing right into that second tower with his second term. Symbolically, it will result in the controlled demolition, the eclipse of the country. Tick-tock, time's up. In this connection, Elon Musk also tweeted, right around the time of his inauguration, the return of the king, when they showed Donald Trump's account returning to Twitter. Return of the King, the final Lord of the Rings film, preceded by the Two Towers. And what happens in the Lord of the Rings? Both those towers are destroyed before Aragorn returns as the king. And then there's this whole aspect of it as well that is much more clear now in terms of how they are presenting Donald Trump in relationship to what is going on in Israel. And this headline is referring to the quote where Trump said that they were going to move everyone out of Palestine. Trump just dressed up ethnic cleansing as a real estate opportunity and blew up America first. Now, just think about this headline. He blew up America first? That's a subliminal suggestion, right? It's a subliminal premonition that you are supposed to register. Donald Trump blew up America first. But anyway, they are presenting him in a way that continues the propaganda that was seeded with the anti-Israeli, anti-war movement that was pro-Palestinian. And this is mostly found on the left, that can also be traced before it to the pro-Ukraine narrative that they were all scripted to repeat. Many well-meaning people believe these things, but what they assimilate into their being and then repeat is artificial intelligence, right? It's something that's been given to them to repeat. They don't have any thoughts of their own. And that's just a product of how effective the mind control is. It's not necessarily their fault. We all fall for this at some point along the way. But you see, this ties into the fascist Nazi Hitler narrative in the sense that they are really merging Trump and Netanyahu together as war criminals, right? As people who are engaging in a genocide and supporting that. And the other side that has been given these talking points the whole time is now just digging deeper into this derangement about how they're doomed, right? This is the end. The new Hitler is rising. It's the rise of Christian nationalism. We're in big trouble. This is Project 2025. It's a Handmaid's Tale. They planned this all along. It's, I have another one down here along the same lines. Chuck Schumer, an unelected shadow government is conducting a hostile takeover of the federal government. It's so fascinating, right? Now it's time for the left in America to repeat this talking point, whereas the last 4 years, it was the right talking about the deep state that was the shadow government conducting a hostile takeover of the federal government. So you see how they play both sides off of each other, and they even use the same talking points to where nothing will ever be changed. They just redirect the energy into the controlled opposition, depending on who is in office at any given point in time. Along the same lines, this is a real tweet by Donald Trump's new State Department appointee. Those who still haven't realized this is a full-scale fascist coup of white supremacists need to wake the F up now. And apparently this person is alleged to have tweeted here, "Competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work." Unfortunately, our entire national ideology is predicated on coddling the feelings of women and minorities and demoralizing competent white men. Now, I don't know if this person actually believes this, or if they were told to tweet this, or if someone else tweeted it through their account. Either way, it's the same result that was intentional. They've been building this narrative that Donald Trump is supported by white nationalists, and that goes all the way back to Back to the Future, and how 1004 and 88 is the 1488. And how that relates to the white nationalist lore. from the beginning, they've been seeding the idea that white nationalists underpin the far right. They are racist, anti-science, anti-Semitic, just generally evil, right? They've painted this idea of what white supremacists are, and then they attach that fabricated idea to Donald Trump so that they produce this kind of reaction. Now the other side can fully say, with things like this and the Hegseth appointment, they look at it and say, oh my gosh, this is an actual coup by white nationalists and white supremacists. They are fascists. We're in big trouble. And in doing so, they redirect all the energy that could actually point out what Donald Trump really is as this Trojan horse laced with explosives, but it's redirected in a fashion that no one can understand what's actually going on because it's so charged with all of this racial tension that has been deliberately spread in the whole country, right? Everybody is programmed along these lines to think racially. That was the whole point of identity politics. In other words, there is this emerging network of quote-unquote far-right leaders across the world, and it's something that the other side will point to and say, oh my gosh, this is a big problem. This is Hitler 2.0, and it's maybe even bigger than that was. This is more countries than Hitler had control of. This is a fascist coup across the world. We need to do something about this. We need to save democracy. And in that context, it's very interesting to me that Trump said he's given advisors instructions for Iran to be obliterated if it assassinates him. With the way they have already primed the collective mind for the idea that Trump is having people try to assassinate him, this is an ominous headline. In the sense that the way he's laced with explosives, in part, could be some kind of staged assassination, along the lines of JFK, maybe, where it's real. I don't know. But some kind of assassination that would be a ritual on the scale of 9/11, where someone who truly believes that this kind of thing is going on the left, is said to have been the Lee Harvey Oswald character that did it, which would inevitably be a patsy, as a part of this operation that I'm sure was planned 100 years ago, or maybe even more, right? It planned in the same amount of time that 9/11 was, however long that might have been. But if they show people that Donald Trump has been assassinated at some point, the reaction to that assassination could result in a full-fledged civil war scenario. I mean, in the sense that they could justify those conditions, putting the military on the streets, martial law, the whole thing. Very suspicious, especially since Israel would get exactly what it wanted in the Middle East if this happened now, if this is really what he has said, or what, him as the front man in the office is said to have said. We never know what's actually coming out of his mouth or the handlers speaking through him. That's a very interesting headline that could possibly transpire down the line. My only hesitation is that they tend to use the violence on the far right side. That's where they like to attach that narrative in particular. So I want to lean in the direction that something on that scale would be perpetrated by the far right initially, so that they could continue the J6 narrative. But I don't know, it could be any variation of this, something along these lines. Maybe later into his term, something like this transpires. I don't know how they're going to do it. Maybe he stays in the whole time and they just destroy America through his actions in some way. And it's a different kind of reaction in the long run, right? It's not something immediate. It's a slow decline, like all empires tend to decline in a very slow fashion. Same way it happened in Rome. Just a very ominous headline that was kind of out of nowhere that I wanted to include here. But hopefully after going over all that, you have a better idea of why Netanyahu gave Donald Trump these 2-pagers. It's symbolic of the larger ritual that Donald Trump is involved in as the Moonchild, as the personification of 9/11, the twins, the two pagers, the Trojan horse that is his presidency, the first term and the second term, which precede the controlled demolition in this ritual destruction of America.